Unit 2A4, Political Socialization. You got a worksheet for this. All I want you to do is, for each box, I just want you to put in your own words after I get done with each of the different types of agents or each box on your worksheet. Make sure you put it in your own words, not in mine. All right, so definition of political socialization. The big official one is how people obtain information, beliefs, attitudes, and values that they base their political views on. This really isn't any different than socialization in general, which means that there's a whole bunch of things that influence who you are, what you think, how you do, what you do, how you act. But political socialization is sort of that second part where it says that they base their political views on. So that makes it all of those things that influence you turns into a product, which is your political beliefs. So in plain English, this basically says, in my way, it says why people believe what they do. The things that they do is going to be called political or socialization agents, but political socialization in general is just you being or thinking the way that you think based on things around you. So agents of socialization, these are the things that actually influence your political beliefs. First is the groups that you belong to. Your family is unbelievably important in your life. You're around them at all times. They influence the way that you think, the things that your morals, what's right and what's wrong, and they influence your language that you use and the way that you view everything. So this naturally is going to impact your political views. Next is your peer groups. Unlike family, you get to choose your peer groups typically. They guide, your peer groups guide acceptable behavior and influence. This is both your friends and not your friends. If you think about it in school settings, basically you've got your friends, and then you've got the people that are in your class. Both of them are technically your peers. Peers are very important to adolescents. If you think about it in high school, how many times, have you done something because you don't want other people to react a particular way, whether they're your friends or not? This naturally is going to influence your political opinions as well. Media. Media is basically the filter and the of all information that you get in your life. Media used to just be, newspapers and books and maybe even television or radio, but today that's changed obviously with Twitter and Facebook and the hundreds of cable channels and satellite channels that you can get on your television and in your pocket on your cell phone. They frame every single political story, and thus they control how people are socialized and what people's opinions are. Next is demographics. This is just who you are. Gender is a social construct, right? That means that society has sort of placed certain things upon our gender roles. Men, mow the lawn, and women do the dishes is sort of the natural order of things in our society. So when you think of gender, make sure you're not just thinking of biology, but like a social construct. So, when a baby girl is playing with a doll when she's, 2 or 3 years old, while her brother who's 2 or 3 years old is kind of G.I. Joes and killing each other, right? And they're killing the dolls, or G.I. Joes are killing each other. So what that turns into is, an example is women are less likely to support war. Men are less likely to support social programs to help families because they don't focus on that as much, just through societal influences. Next is education. What you are taught in the narrative that you're taught in is nearly the same as media's influence. If you think about in this class, I am framing everything and you are sort of soaking it in. You still have your own opinions, but what I am going to frame the things that we talk about in a particular way. I have control over the initial context of what you're learning. Also, if you're the more educated you get when you get your bachelor's and master's and doctorate, the more likely you're going to be a liberal. The people with doctoral degrees are very oftentimes liberal, but again, that's not the only influence on your life. Religion is another one. Religion lays the foundation for acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. Many morals and values are founded here. Many people have opinions about political issues based on religious beliefs. For example, many people who are Christian believe that abortion is wrong because death is, killing people is wrong in their religion. So abortion they would view as murder, and they would also murder, maybe potentially think of capital punishment as murder as well. The region you live in, different regions have different political practices. It's the same really as peers and culture. If you go into the South, the political culture is significantly different than it is, in Chicago or New York City. In the South, there is a lot more focus on states' rights, and really it's just about the people that are around you all the time, and your history. Next is social class. Social class, a lot of times we talk about, is a really sort of large definition. That means where you live, what job you have, and how much money you have. Sort of socioeconomic class. So social class influences your political beliefs because of what you have or don't have. If you don't have money, you want more. If you do have money, you don't want somebody taking it from you. So this is going to definitely influence your political beliefs. Ethnicity. This is closely related to your cultural beliefs. Many Native Americans and African American cultures have a more family-oriented culture. I mean, that's how their family and how they were brought up. Many WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, have more of an individualistic view. That's why you get more Native American and African American multi-generational homes where grandparents and grandkids live in the same house, and less in a place where the WASPs live. Oftentimes, if you're a disadvantaged group, you want the government to protect you, so you become more liberal. Next is time. There's a life cycle. People's political ideas based on their age, and that may also have to do with their socioeconomic class, but also just experience and knowledge. I remember Churchill's quote that I spoke about earlier in class: if you're not liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at 40, you have no brain. Now, that's not, my opinion or anything like that, but what Churchill's talking about is at 20, you don't really have much money. And so you're more concerned about people and being nice to people, which is what, liberals want to take care of people with the government. If you're not a conservative at 40, you have no brain, which sort of tells you that once you have stuff, you don't want it to be taken away from you. There's period effects. These are major historical events that affect everyone. 9/11, economic depressions, even something like Sandy Hook Elementary shooting is going to affect people's political opinions. Cohort effects are specific events that has influence over a specific group of people. This is something like maybe the draft during the Vietnam War for young men or people who knew young men who went to fight. So, typically, you're going to see this list a lot. You have the typical groups: younger adults are liberal, working class, meaning people who actually work for a living, they're blue collar, union members, urban dwellers, which people who live in the city, poor elderly who need extra help from the government, minorities in Northeast United States. On the conservative side, you have older adults, upper class, professional workers, rural and suburban dwellers, largely white, and in the South.